Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order looks like a fascinating narrative experience, however EA is still at the helm of the overall project, and we all know that EA is notorious for ruining its games with over-the-top DLCs, microtransactions and loot boxes. Basically, EA just want your money. So it does raise the question, can we trust EA with Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order? I mean, I'm going to pretend we have a choice there. We're either going to buy the game or we're not going to. EA's involvement is unconditional. They took to Twitter to reassure us, however, by telling us, no microtransactions, no loot boxes, and no, we won't be adding them. A single-player Star Wars story for those of you who are ready to become a Jedi, followed by a later tweet, which told us to trust nobody. Now, it does say a lot about the gaming industry and how it's turned into a corporate fuckabout, as saying that a game won't include microtransactions, loot boxes, or anything like that is now apparently newsworthy. Now, it's one thing if Respawn came out and said this, as then it would just be the studio developing the game telling us what to expect from it. But EA themselves coming out and saying this is arguably very insincere, considering what EA is. Hey guys, look at us, in our next game we're not going to have any microtransactions or loot boxes or any of that shit, because unlike other companies like Ubisoft or whatever the other fucking one was, I can't really remember, we're good, we like you, buy our game please, we're amazing. Please forget. Now I think it's fair to say that any company making a video game wants your money, as that's the entire point of the product. The developers may be in an industry that they love, they may love making the game, but in the end of the day they are there to make a living. So to say that EA's goal is to make money is basically no shit Sherlock. But we can say that companies like EA are quite short-sighted in how they choose to make this money, favouring smaller projects in a higher quantity over massive projects that could potentially either flop or give them huge success. It does appear as if EA is unaware that they are EA and they could just do both. So while I understand that EA's priority should be making money, because that's the point of having a company, their methods of going about achieving this have been unpopular to say the very least. Obviously the prime example of their unpopular methods in effect is Star Wars Battlefront 2 from 2017. And unless you were hiding under a rock, essentially Star Wars Battlefront 2 was absolutely pasted with microtransactions and loot boxes. So despite the fact that when playing through the game you barely get your money's worth anyway, considering this got a full AAA release, the game shoved microtransactions in your face asking you to pay more for specific things. Those specific things being loot boxes for the multiplayer, in which you could pay real money for the chance of finding better gear to use in multiplayer, and essentially it became a very light pay-to-win sort of feature. For the most part, multiplayer was still very balanced between players who chose to do this and not, but at the same time you did get better gear if you were paying money for all these loot boxes, which was for the chance of finding these cool items. You weren't even promised it, which is what caused the controversy where people were debating, were loot boxes gambling? And to that I say, is buying packs of Pokemon cards gambling? Because if that is the case, then I know at least 20 people who have a serious problem. The problem isn't whether or not it's gambling, it's the fact that you've already paid £50 or $60 asking price for the game as is, and then it's asking you to pay more for the chance of getting extra stuff, exclusive or otherwise, when the game that you've paid for itself is barely worth the money you've asked for it. Because, let's be honest, although Battlefront 2 wasn't terrible, you could play through the main story and the DLC in a matter of hours and then never touch the game again. So I can 100% see why microtransactions and loot boxes coming from EA would be looked down upon. Since this is a single player experience as well, it just wouldn't work, would it? Unless someone at EA went, hey, pay £5 and we can make your lightsaber purple. Now I'd imagine the only reason why there is no sign of microtransactions in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is because it's a single player experience and there's no real room to put them in. And being a single player experience is an excuse not to and regain good favour before making another multiplayer game and risking nobody buying it. Even then, I mean, they'll have to be careful not to piss down all the good faith that this game might bring them. But my point here is, when EA says that there's no microtransactions or loot boxes, it's not because they care, it's just a ploy to get more people to buy the game. And since they've said this now, this means that they can be held accountable if they go back on it. So I do believe that that means that Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order will not see microtransactions or loot boxes. However, that doesn't answer the question, can we trust EA? And so far that's not applicable to the past 4 minutes of discussion, is it? We've been debating whether or not what EA's been saying is sincere, which it isn't, not whether or not it's trustworthy, which, to be fair, it probably is. But we're not answering can we trust EA because they've said this. No, we're answering can we trust EA with this game? Can we trust EA to do justice to a single player narrative game with no microtransactions or loot boxes, only being able to profit from the asking price of the game alone. Will they actually put in the same amount of effort into this game as they would a game in which they can paste it with microtransactions? Which doesn't say very much. We all know that making the game is not on EA, it's on Respawn, and we know that they care about their games and that they're good at making games. I'm not a massive fan of their other games, mind. Apex Legends and Titanfall don't really appeal to me, but they are quite popular, so Respawn definitely does have its experience in making popular games. But this is actually Respawn Entertainment's first AAA single-player title, so it could be uncharted waters for them. But with the passion and ability to make solid games already there, it shouldn't be too difficult a challenge. You're probably wondering, where does the question, can we trust EA, factor into this? Well, on the whole, EA games don't have the best track record for being the highest quality. There are some spectacular games in there, but there are also some really bad ones. Because not unlike another company that we know, they probably do force deadlines a bit, as well as restrict resources, which causes game quality to dip significantly. And now that we have a specific launch date for this game, a game they haven't even showed us gameplay for yet, probably because they're still working on it, well, if you think about it, it's kind of a big red flag. So can we trust EA to ensure that the delivery of this game is to the highest quality it can possibly achieve? Definitely not, as it stands currently. Doesn't mean I think the game's going to be bad, it just means I know that trusting EA is a bullet in the foot. And I mean, they said it themselves. But anyways, let's end this video with a bit of optimism, or something, depends on how you take it. But Amy Hennig, who was the creative director of Ragtag, which was supposedly the Visceral Games title, which was cancelled. I'd imagine being the creative director of a cancelled project is like watching somebody curb stomp your baby. Well, she had this to say about Jedi Fallen Order and EA's sudden change in heart. There is so much change in the industry all the time. Over the course of my time at EA, we were back and forth on what the overall publishing corporation wanted. Everybody's trying to figure out what the right path is. I also think Respawn's game has the benefit of being largely developed before they were acquired. It is a protected entity, and Vince Zampella makes very sure. Because he's a part of the executive team at EA, he can protect the interests of Respawn. This is all speculation on my part. I don't know why the change of heart happened, because that was very clearly not an acceptable plan when we were working on Ragtag. But you know, things change. And you've got to understand there's been huge changes in management there since all of this happened as well. Both Patrick Soderlund and Jade Raymond have left in the meantime, and Laura Miele, who was the franchise general manager for Star Wars when I joined, is now in Patrick's role. So I don't have any insider knowledge, but there's a lot of reasons why they could have adopted a new attitude for this. And I'm glad for Respawn's sake, because I'm excited about their game and I've heard great things about it. So what Amy Hennig is saying is essentially this change of heart could be a genuine one on EA's part, which I doubt, but at the same time, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order has received plenty of development time and is apparently coming along very well. So if being optimistic for this game is your thing, then yeah, why not? As not only has it received plenty of development time, but at the same time it could prove to EA that making single-player games is not a dead art. And from this we may even see more and more titles like this come from EA, especially about Star Wars. But that's just my interpretation of that. Another interpretation is the game was nearly finished anyway, so they hit screw it. But I'm still surprised that companies like this don't know that single-player experiences still sell. I mean... Anyways, let's just wrap up this video by answering the question overall. Can we trust EA? Fuck no, of course we can't. There will probably be a catch, there always is. And if there isn't and they manage to gain players' good faith, then at some point afterwards they will piss it down the sink again. That is just me being a realist, I'm sorry. That doesn't mean that Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order will be bad, however. And who knows, if it does well, we might see EA break away from making these multiplayer Star Wars games rammed with loot boxes in favour for more thoughtful narrative experiences, which could possibly result in actually good Star Wars games, something EA hasn't managed to achieve yet. And who knows, maybe there will come a day when a game like this will be announced and we can know immediately from the offset that it won't be cancelled. As let's face it, that was a cancellation that I saw coming from miles away. But until that becomes a reality,
trust no one.
And there we go, that concludes today's discussion. Thank you all for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share the channel with your friends and all that wonderful stuff, I would really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon with another video at some point.